movement control order extending for another 2 weeks here in Malaysia, reviewing cars won't be easy. So why not review cars that we already have? Today at MaxTorqueMY, I'm going to review my dad's Mercedes C180 Sport and tell you what it's like living with a cheap Mercedes. Yes, I said cheap. You'll find out soon why. This Mercedes C180 Sport debuted in 2008, the first generation of the W204 chassis. The C-Class was the smallest sedan in the Mercedes lineup at the time, basically a mini S-Class, as the previous generation W203 C-Class looked exactly like a shrunken down S-Class sedan. For those who still don't know about Mercedes' confusing numbering system, let's put it simply. The bigger your number is, the more expensive and well-equipped your Mercedes is. Double digits denote high-performance models, and finally, cars without numbers are extremely expensive, such as the SLS and Mercedes Maybach. Now this says C180 at the back. What does that mean? Well, it means it is the cheapest C-Class you can get. This is Mercedes' equivalent of no frills at all. The 2008 C180 was never sold in Malaysia. This, along with thousands of other C180s you see on the road, are great import or recon models, basically second-hand cars from Europe or any other countries. However, my dad's particular C-Class is a sport trim model, which means it has the AMG Sport treatment. AMG, being Mercedes' insane in-house tuning company, did up this kit very well, with a sport body kit that lowers the car and skids it on any bump in Malaysia, larger AMG style wheels with front-started disc brakes which are extremely expensive to replace, lowered and slightly firmer suspension along with wider rear tires for that hot rod look. Finally, to finish off that exterior AMG look, blackened out taillights and a huge Mercedes grille in front. Now there are other trim levels for this C-Class, but when you spec your base model C-Class to look like this, it really doesn't look that bad. Some models have much smaller wheels with no body kit and it just makes it look like a taxi car. But those smaller wheels does translate to a better ride. These larger wheels and generally firm German suspension is not the most comfortable, especially for older drivers. Now with the exterior done, let's move on to the inside of the car where I'm going to give you a POV tour of what it's like being in a 2008 Mercedes-Benz. Now remember, I did say this is a cheap Mercedes, despite it being a mid-2000s generation, which weren't really known for using the highest quality materials. There are some things that are truly unacceptable even back in 2008. Now let's move on to the inside of the car. Alright, now we're inside the C180, so this is a full 360-ish view of the car. So this is all the back seats and everything. So let's start off with the door panel. So it has these black leather-ish plastic whatever style of door panel, and this is the aluminum trim which is unique to the sport model cars. And this is the funny bit here, is that these switches, and it's everywhere in the car, they're all chipped away from touching and putting your finger in, and which is really weird because why would this happen on a car that's not, it wasn't really cheap when it came out, especially when it was sold in Malaysia. And these things have started to chip away. So this was 2008 Mercedes quality right here. And even switches that you don't really touch, like we don't really use this window lockout switch, and yet it's already missing its portion and over here and everything. So this is a weird quality issue of the car. But one thing that is nice is, if the camera can focus, is there's a light under the door handle, so when you put your finger in at night, it illuminates your finger and then it illuminates the plastic part of the door, so it feels really nice to look into it. You go further down, this is your grab handle. It's also made from this hard plastic leather thing, so it feels nice to touch, and there's a grip behind here so you can really put your fingers in. And then moving down, there's some storage with some junk here, and then you can see the boot opener. So if you press that button, the boot will swing open. And this car does have automatic seats, you can see the controls down there, but it has manual reclining seats, so you have to pull back and forth, and the seats are really heavy because they are electric seats. So it's a half luxury, half cheap out feature. And then moving more down is there's a leather steering hiding thing, and then of course there are aluminum pedals. So this is your gas pedal, this is your brake pedal, and then this is your handbrake. This car does not have a traditional lever style handbrake, so this is a very European style handbrake, I guess. And then moving up a bit, you can see I'll move the steering wheel. So this is your light switch and your ignition. Because this is a base model car, it doesn't have push button ignition or even smart key access. There is a switch placement for the smart key access at the door handles, but it's just a template, it's just a cutout. It doesn't do anything. If you bought an expensive one, then you'll get smart key access. So it's just there on the door handle to show that you didn't get an expensive model. Now moving on, this is your right AC vent, and I'll talk about the air conditioning vent later because that is the most ridiculous part of this car. So moving on to the gauge cluster, so this is also an aluminum gauge cluster because it's a sport package, so it does look a bit nicer than the really base model ones, which are all black plastic and it just looks terrible. And now moving closer, you can see that it shows the left hand tail lamp is broken, and that's a normal thing in this car. All the lights and all the sensors will break and it will tell you what's broken, which is kind of nice, but at the same time it is quite annoying because it does pop up every single time or every single month because it's a German car and it just breaks down. That's what it does. And if you press OK, and again more of this chipped off switches, so it goes back to normal, and then it goes to your clock, your speedometer, your gear selector, and your mileage. As you can see, the speedometer says kmh, while the main one is mph. Because this is a recon car from Europe, most of these cars use mph, so it's a normal thing. And then on the left you can see your fuel gauge and your temperature gauge, your handbrake, and then on the right is your tachometer. So if I press the engine, if I press the pedal, it will do as such. And you can scroll into this digital thing and you can see your audio, your telephone. It does have Bluetooth telephone, and this is your service system and everything. So it's supposed to tell you when to service and all that stuff. And it has a tire pressure monitoring system, so if the tires go a bit flat, it will tell you. And then going to the settings, you can set. It's a very basic system, so it's not as modern or as intuitive as newer systems, but it was 2008, so you didn't really expect it much. This was pretty good itself back then. Now moving on to the steering wheel, so this is also a sport package thing. See, normal Mercedes cars have a 4-spoke steering wheel, so this spoke here and a spoke here. So this is the AMG Sport package. It has this 3-spoke sporty steering wheel. So on the left you have your OK button, your selector, and your back button. So if you press that, it will go back. And then on the right are your volume control. So this is to make it louder, to make it this one, and these are your call buttons. And over here, okay, this is also another really stingy thing about Mercedes-Benz, is this is supposed to be your voice command, but this car does not have voice command because it's the base model. So the button is just there to show you that you could have voice command, but you didn't. And it's just there, and if you press it, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything at all to the car. So it's just there, and it's like, why couldn't they just took the button out? So this is also a quality and attention to detail problem back then in 2008. And I'm sure that Mercedes is now don't have this if the car doesn't have voice command, but I think all Mercedes-Benz models have voice command now, regardless of model. Now onto the center console, you can see this is your wiper stock and your signal stock. So one thing that's cool about this thing is when you tap the signal, when you tap the signal, it will signal 3 times. So this is a European thing, and not a lot of cars have this, but I've only noticed them on European cars. And it's also your wipers. So if you press that, and all your wiper controls are here, and they are automatic wipers. So this is on 0 at the moment, but if you turn it on, it will wipe when it's raining, and sometimes it just wipes when it's not raining. And over here is your cruise control. So this is actually standard on European cars, I think, because the roads are so huge and so long. So this is a basic cruise control system. You can set how fast you want to go. You can set your speed limiter. So it's not that fancy, so to say, but it works fine. And now moving on to the radio or the infotainment system. So if you press this button, this reveals the screen, and I will turn it on and turn off the music because of copyright issues. So wait, the radio is okay. There's a warning system. This is 2008, by the way, so this is really old. So this is what the radio looks like. So it's supposed to look like a classic AM FM style radio, and if you press this, you'll go to the stations and whatnot and all that stuff. And these are your radio presets, which is also your telephone keypad and cancel and all that stuff. And it's a very basic radio. This is your volume control, this is your next plug, and this is your CD player. And it's not a CD changer, it's just a CD player, so you have to put one CD at a time. And moving up, this is your traction control system. So if you press that, it will have an exclamation mark here, and the tires will spin, and the tires will spin. This is a powerful engine. And this is your hazard lights and all that stuff. And then moving on to other radio stuff, so your radio, your disc, and your other settings and whatnot, your system settings. Now moving down to the air conditioning system. So this is I'll put the gear away, and by the way, this is a pattern gear system, gear lever system, so typical of Mercedes back then. And so it works like that. And then you can put left or right to change gear. And this is your mode selector, so it has a manual, comfort, and sport. And sport really does make the car sporty. It does make the car jerk more at lower speeds because it needs to have open roads and open spaces if you want to accelerate. Now let's move on to the air conditioning system. So this has a dual zone climate system, so one zone for the driver and one zone for the rest of the passengers in the car, because this car has rear air conditioning vents. So it has cold and heat. It has heater. It has a heater because it's a European car. And again, more of these chipped button. This is supposed to say AC, but because AC, we use it all the time, we press it every single time when we turn on the car, so it just disappeared completely. And this is supposed to be your fan. It is your fan button, so this is all scraped off. This is scraping off, and this is actually a crack. I'm not really sure how that even happened, but we don't really care about that, and since it's a daily driver. And moving on to the inside, so there's some coins. This is your coin box and a power outlet. You see, this car does not have a USB outlet because it's so old, so there's no way to plug in your phone or whatever. And if I zoom it correctly, if I show it correctly, there's also a light in this storage area too, which is nice. It's an orange light. Now moving further back, so this is Mercedes's infotainment system. It's called Command or whatever you want to say it. So this predates the new system, which is called MBUX. So Command works in a very basic way, so you can move, and then you can go to your presets, your radio, and your sound. And it's a very basic system, because there's really nothing in this radio system. Some high spec models have GPS systems, and from there you can really use, but this car doesn't have GPS, and it would have not worked if it had GPS and it was sold here, because it's programmed to work in Europe only. And moving on to the center console, this is all scratched up because it's all plastic, and and it's been sitting in the sun and whatnot, so it's normal wear and tear really. And this is your other storage area, and there's supposed to be cup holders here, but it's like a plastic piece, but it's not there anymore because when we bought it was never there anyway. And here you can see this gap. This is supposed to be some sort of garage door closer, but along the way of ownership it just disintegrated for no reason. It's made of rubber, and then one day when we were opening it just fell apart, so we just took it out. And to replace these small trim panels, it's not cheap. It's not really cheap. It's really expensive, and you have to get it at the right color, because these things were sold in different colors. Like for instance, you can have like a tan dashboard or a brown dashboard, so you need to order one that's black, and apparently the black ones are really hard to get. So we just decided to just leave it like this. It doesn't really do much anyway. And then moving on to the center storage. So if you press, there are two buttons on either side, so it opens this door thing, and then you can see in the inside it's a pretty deep storage space, and it's also cooled. So it's really cold inside here, so you can, if you want to store something like a sandwich or whatever, so you can put it in there and then you can just close it. And next to the passenger seat, so this is your lumbar support. There's also one on the driver's seat, so if you push this up and down, something will move up and down, and it just makes driving a little bit better and it makes it slightly more comfortable. Now moving on to the dashboard and to the glove box. So this is also a really weird quality issue, is that the glove box is actually broken. So it's supposed to open like this, but there's a pin that holds the glove box like this. The pin broke, and I'm thinking that the pin is made from plastic, and this glove box is really heavy. So when that broke, the glove box doesn't hold anymore, so it just falls down and into this position. So it's sort of broken, and again, replacement parts are really expensive because according to the shop guy, you have to replace the whole assembly system, and that's going to cost a lot of money, which is not really worth it. So, but if we just, we just be prepared when someone opens the glove box and it slams onto their knees, and it's really painful. So it's a double-story shelf glove box, so it has a light there too. There's also a AC in the glove box, so again, you can store fish or sandwiches. And over there, that metal ring thing, that's actually your USB. That's your AUX jack. So if you plug in your phone, there's a small hole sort of thing on top of the glove box wall. So if you plug in a wire and you want your phone to, or MP3 thing to come out, it will come out from that hole. Okay, now the most unacceptable part of the car are the AC vents. So I'll close this up. You see, the AC vents are made from plastic, and that's normal. And the connectors inside to move the vents are also made from plastic. But the funny thing about this car is all of them are completely broken, because when you can see, when I adjust this, it can go up and down. This vent can go up and down, but when I turn it left to right, it doesn't move because the plastic inside the vent that moves the inner vents are broken. And this one is completely gone. Look, it doesn't do anything. And this is really funny. And same as this one, it doesn't work. All of it's gone, completely gone. And the one on the passenger side too, it doesn't even have the thing to hold anymore, and this thing is also about to come out anytime soon. See, the thing is, and according to the guy in the shop, this is a problem in W204 Mercedes chassis cars, is that the air conditioning vent switch thing, the thing that holds the vent to move around, will always break. And what's funny is, these things are super expensive to replace. For one thing, you have to get it at the correct color, which is black in this car, and you have to replace it. It's one set. This thing is one whole set. That's one whole set, and that's one whole set. See, they made the thing replaceable because they know it's going to break, I guess. So it's this square here. So if you wanted to replace it, you can just take it out, and you can take out that one, you can take out that one, and you put in your one. But you have to get a black one to match your car, unless you want your car to have tan air conditioning vents. So this is really funny. All of these are completely broken, so we have to adjust it. You have to poke like a toothpick or a small metal thing to make everything move. And what we use is, we have this in the storage area. We have this bottle opener from London, and we just move it around so you can see what feels nice for us. And usually we set it at one time, and then we just leave it because that's where the air really comes out to us. And it's just hilarious that they made this in 2008 and they got away with it, and how the owners had to cope with this. I mean, this is fine because it's blowing air to my face, but the ones like this, and you have to use, and we have another one, we have another tool. It's a folded up card. So we stick it like this, and then air can blow to the passenger. It is truly an unacceptable way of creating an air conditioning vent, and I'm glad that the newer models have a circular vent, so it's impossible to break, unless they do break, because I wouldn't be surprised if they did. So moving up to the rearview mirror, so it's an automatically dimming rearview mirror. So if it senses a high beam, so this is the sensor right here, so it will dim by itself. Now moving on to the center control stack, so these are just normal light buttons, light switches. So this is your middle light switch, and these are your reading lights, so which are actually under the rearview mirror. so it's quite nice actually. And if I close it, it will close. And these are special buttons actually. So on the right is your tow mode button. So if the car gets towed and you turn that on, the car won't sound the alarm when it's being towed all the way to the impound lot. The one on the left, I'm not really sure what that does, but it's just there. And both of these buttons are not actually working, or it may have been disconnected when it was sold here. I'm not really sure why they don't really work. And moving on to the sun visors and the passenger sun visor, which is the same as the driver. So there's a mirror here, and one cool thing about the mirror is when you open it, this light turns on. So that's a nice feature actually, and it's kind of cool that the light turns on when you open this, so it's connected and it hasn't broken yet. So you know. Alright, so now we're inside the back seat of the car, and you can see this locking thing and more of this aluminium panels, and again there are lights under the door handles, and this center piece thing is slightly lowered down, so it does feel better to the hand. And overall, because this is a C-Class, the car is really compact, and you know, C does mean compact in the Mercedes lineup. So the legroom is really not that fantastic. I mean, there is legroom, but it's just, you know, it's not that great, and you can't really stretch because under all the seats and everything are, you know, electronic stuff and stuff to move the seats in front. So I mean, it's not uncomfortable at all. It's just that it is a bit tight for taller or larger people. Now moving on to the rear passenger air vents. So these ones actually work, so you can adjust them properly without fearing it breaking. I'm not sure if they might break soon, but as of now they're still working. And moving on, it is very small, very basic back here. There are 3 headrests and everything, and the rear seats don't fold down because of reasons I'm not really sure why. Maybe there's a support structure at the back, and if you pull this leather strap, this goes to the center armrest, and if you pull this up, there's a carpeted section to put stuff, and this really complicated, very German cup holders. If you press this happens, so it pops up and these things come out. These can hold your drink, but it is needlessly complicated, and I'm not really sure why it has to be like that. But at least the car has cup holders at the back, and you know, you can store it nicely when you're not using it. And that's really all there is about this car. There's really not much things that are fun around the car because it's a basic car. I mean, it does feel nice. The interior, the leather seats do feel nice, and these seats are leather and fabric, so they don't get really hot under the sun. But other than that, there's really nothing much to this car. I mean, it's as basic as you can get. The airbags are standard though. There are 8 airbags in this car, even though it's a cheap Mercedes-Benz. And one thing I forgot is these grips here, when you let them go, it's soft. It goes back in its position in a really soft way, so it's really nice actually. And my friend really loves this feature for some reason, because he hates when normal cars, when you let go, it just slams back to the ceiling of the car. So yeah, this is basically the car. To conclude, overall the design of the W204 is clean and nice, marking a new generation after the previous early 2000s disaster that was churning out of the factory. They were considered to be the worst generation of Mercedes cars ever due to their big reputation of being very unreliable and even cheaper plastic interior. This car is no different. Despite being a base model with no fancy electronic stuff to break, it does find ways to break. And parts are very expensive. Even the smallest and simplest of parts cost double the amount, because it's from Germany. With the car getting older and at over 160,000 kilometers in mileage, stuff like this will just happen. Otherwise, regular maintenance is not that expensive, and if you keep that schedule, it runs fine. Out of our 3 family cars, this is the fastest and most stylish one despite its age. It's not timeless per se. Nonetheless, this old Merc has and is still serving well as our family car. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more content.